Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the Caleb Gordon Podcast. I'm your host, Caleb Gordon. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be a part of the program today. Super excited for the conversation today. I sit down with Pastor Matt Chandler, and we talk about his new book, The Overcomers. He is on his book tour, and he stopped here tonight, first night in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we sit down and we talk about how the church is built for a time such as this. Like the fear and the worry and all the things that are happening, the church was built for this kind of work in this season. And so I pray that this conversation encourages you and it challenges you this week. Welcome to the Caleb Gordon Podcast.
Come on, Caleb.
Mr. Matt
It's good
Chandler.
to be on.
Holy
It's
smokes,
good
bro.
to be on, man.
This is
in Tulsa.
In Tulsa.
Amazing.
This is your first time flying. Well,
First time flying into
being
the airport.
here.
That's right. But I mean, Tulsa will surprise you.
Yeah.
I mean, great food, kind of cool vibe.
Yep.
And I don't think anybody thinks that about Tulsa outside of Tulsa.
I think it's cool.
Yeah, well, I would hope.
I'm just from Bartlesville, bro.
Okay.
Just up the road. So not bad.
Well, in Witt, George, we hung out together. We were getting our masters together for like 3 years.
Yes, sir.
And he was always like, when you come to Tulsa, man, there's this joint that I've got to take you. I mean, we've got to have dinner. The food scene in Tulsa is legit. So
Yeah.
Here we are.
Hey, welcome to it. So I was telling you as you walked in, I had a buddy used to work for the Boys and Growth Club and had a guy hand me or send me a link via email. That was back in the day. We didn't text back there. It was an email link.
Oh, I remember.
He's like, hey, you got to check out this church. So I clicked on the link and it took me to this old looking website, Village Church.
Yeah.
And he's like, you got to listen to this sermon. So I clicked play and I was like, I didn't do any work that day.
Okay.
I listened to a whole series.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it was fun. So 30,000 foot view. How did Jesus get a hold of Matt Chandler?
Oh gosh. We had moved from the Bay Area to Texas. Daddy was military. And that's probably why I'm an extrovert, because I got about 3.5 years to make friends before we're going to a different state. And then I started playing football, and largest religion in Texas. And
Sure.
So joined the high school football team, and I'm in the locker room taking off my pads, and the best athlete by far on our team, his name was Jeff Faircloth, ended up playing ball for Texas A&M, just walks up to me and was like, hey man, I need to tell you about Jesus. When do you want to do that?
Nice.
No, didn't whisper it, wasn't nervous about it, at least didn't look like he was nervous
Sure.
about it. And I knew enough about Jesus to not be interested in him. Just grew up with some home dynamics where Jesus was looked. I just couldn't understand him.
Yeah.
And to my understanding, he was constantly frustrated with me. I wasn't his kind of people. And so my adolescent response was, well, I don't want you either.
Yeah, sure.
But Jeff, what drew me to hearing from Jeff was his boldness in that moment. If you're in a football locker room and everybody's lying about
Sure.
sexual exploits, it is a filthy environment.
Right.
And Jeff he was just so unafraid, and I wanted to not be afraid like he was.
Right.
And
Just
so,
boldness.
and if we're being honest, if that was like the third string fullback that said that to me, I'm probably not as apt to go, okay. But it's the star player on a very good team that's making a state title run.
Fantastic.
And it was awesome.
Blew you out of the water.
Yeah. And so I just started going to church with Jeff, and I would mock it. And then he would drive me home and be like, so you want to come back next week? I was like, yeah, can you pick me up?
Yeah, sure.
And so now I know theologically that's called the effectual call of God. God was wooing me. I didn't know that at the time.
Right.
There was just something about it that I was being drawn to, even as I was making fun of it and trying to find a reason not to believe.
Right.
So that's how it started.
Bananas.
And
That's
that
so
lasted
awesome.
about a year.
Love it. So you're on a book tour.
I am.
Just wrote a book.
First stop.
This is
Tulsa,
first-
Oklahoma.
T-Town.
Yeah.
Stop number
That's how
one.
we're kicking it off.
I love it. That's fantastic. So in the book, it emphasizes the power of the gospel in helping believers overcome adversity.
Yeah.
Can you share an example from your ministry where you've witnessed this kind of power transforming someone's life in a profound way?
Yeah. And really there's the book side of this idea,
Yep.
and then there's the podcast. And the podcast is just these kinds of stories. It's just, the idea was to do a real raw not safe for the whole family
Sure.
kind of podcast where people who have gone through the stuff
Yep.
that you and I think I wouldn't survive that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't make it to the other side of that.
Sure.
That would kill me. And I just wanted them to share their story of how the Lord was with them in it, the dark night of the soul where you're angry with God because of it, and then how he leads you out the other side stronger and deeper and more in love with him. And so, man, I think we've got 20 something episodes of just those stories. It's long form, 2 hours, details, and it is gritty. It is not safe for the whole family.
When you dropped those, I had taken my wife, who went and saw George Strait and Chris Stapleton in Denver.
That'd be a good show.
It was a great show. It was in Mile High Stadium.
Come on.
And it was bananas. So we drive back and like it popped up on my phone. Hey, this just dropped. So we just, and so I
come on
the whole drive back to Oklahoma from Colorado.
Yeah, it's loss of a child, anxiety and depression, spiritual torment, adultery. It's all addiction, alcoholism. It's those kinds of stories that I wanted to tell in the face of this current moment where it seems like everywhere you're looking, people are like, well, I got hurt or I struggle with this, so Jesus can't be real. So I left the church because of this or because of this. And I'm just going, what gospel did you say yes to? I mean, the Bible is filled with, in this world, you will have trouble.
Yep.
Take heart, though, I have overcome the world. Or in the case of where I'm drawing the theme overcomers, the letters to the churches in the book of Revelation, in each one of those letters, he says, hey, to he who overcomes, here's your reward.
Here's your reward.
To he who overcomes, here's your reward. And each of those rewards are highly contextual to the location. They would have understood it in ways that are probably hard for us to understand in, at the time we're doing this in 2024.
Sure.
So like if you're reading that and you're like, oh, I'll get a white stone. That probably doesn't mean anything to you.
Right.
But for them,
where
they were, they were in a city made of white stones. He's saying to them, I'm going to give you a city. I'm going to give you a place of belonging.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the theme, and those are the stories I want to tell. And honestly, that's why I wanted to write the book.
Sure.
To kind of lift our eyes back up to Jesus and not just at all the hardship in the world, which he told us we were going to have.
It's there. There's a ton of it right now.
No way around it.
And it's funny because I over the last, 5-6 years, you've seen so many high level Christians. They're like, well, I'm deconstructing.
Yeah.
I'm bouncing. And I'm like, I don't see that in the text.
Yeah. No, because you're not. Like I'll often try to draw, like the 11 other disciples don't bail on Jesus because of Judas.
Right. Yeah.
They don't go, oh, see, there we go. There's somebody here who lacks integrity. There's somebody here who's not. So we're out. That's not the way it's meant to go, which is why the Bible's so vocal, like over and over again, on the difficulty of life in a fallen world. The promise is that God will be with us, not like Jesus isn't a genie in a lamp. It's not like you're going to rub it, he's going to make all your dreams come true. But he is going to be with you.
There's churches that say that.
There are. And there are people that
literally,
even if churches don't say it, they just believe it. We'll talk about it tonight. The white rider in Revelation 6, he looks just like Jesus, but he's not. He represents false gospels that go out. So outside the church, that's all sorts of promises that are going to make you a whole person and make life better. So that's self-actualization, that's sexual identity stuff, that's social justice stuff. But it's not Jesus. It's like a fake salvation. And so that, and inside the church, it looks like heresy. It looks like teaching about Jesus that doesn't line up with how he's revealed himself about to us in the text.
Just wanted to say thank you to one of our amazing sponsors, Revo Financial. For many people, financial stewardship isn't just about smart financial decisions. It's about aligning those decisions with their faith and values. Revo Financial brings biblical wisdom to the financial planning and investment process. Whether you're planning for retirement, college, or special charitable strategies, Revo Financial helps you create a roadmap that aligns your spiritual values. Visit revofinancial.com and set up your complimentary one-on-one appointment today and start building a future that honors your faith. I've been curious, where do you land in the post-mill, all-mill?
Yeah, I'm going to be an all-mill guy because I think most of church history has been all-mill.
Okay.
And I think because Revelation is apocalyptic,
Yep.
is one of its three things that it says it is, then you have to approach the text as apocalyptic literature, which means there's a ton of symbolism, and it's not literal in some places. So in the parts that are letters, yes. In the parts that are prophetic, and prophetic's not this is the future, prophetic is this, thus saith the Lord.
Yeah.
And then when you get into dragons and beasts coming out of the sea and locust, I think we've made ourselves look foolish by trying to guess these things, like the Apache helicopter is the locust in Revelation 13.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well, never mind, it's not.
It's
Or
not.
the mark of the beast is my favorite because it's like any new tech that's ever introduced, like this could be it.
Yeah.
And I think we just make ourselves look foolish when we're trying to not let the text speak for itself, or let the entire Bible interpret. Because the fascinating thing about the book of Revelation is there's over 500 allusions to the Old Testament in it. In fact, Eugene Peterson says there's nothing in the book of Revelation that hadn't already been said somewhere else in the Bible.
You're talking to a recovering dispensationalist.
Okay.
And my dad was on staff with Dr. Adrian Rogers.
Okay.
And he was a pastor my whole life. He went to be home with the Lord in December of 2021.
Okay.
And we watched all the movies.
Yeah.
I mean,
I saw them.
So, Fellowship Hall, pack in, watch the movie, and so
people getting their heads cut off with guillotines.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, if this is future, why are we using the guillotine? Are we going back? Do we
go
revert?
backwards.
Is there some kind of terrible thing that reverts to guillotines for killing Christians?
Yeah. So I'm teetering. I'm landing more post-mill.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I've got a lot of grace for anybody who lands on any of them.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to be upset if they're wrong when it all plays out. We have far more agreement than we do disagreement. 100%. And so I'm not a hardliner. I'm just trying to understand the text, and I've got a lot of grace.
Yep. And it's funny because I still got family. They're still and they're like, how could you do this? And I'm like, I still love you. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, if he shows up, and my thought is if we're going to get raptured, cool, I'm going.
Yeah.
I mean, he's king of my heart. So.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. So you've had some personal trials in terms of cancer.
Yeah.
Brain cancer, not the.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's the kind of cancer
you don't want,
this is the one you don't want.
Yeah. That's probably true. Like a banner over all cancers, like no, thank you. But
right.
You don't want to be messing around with the brain.
Yeah. Mom had leukemia, so
okay.
It's not no bueno.
Yeah.
But you've experienced difficulties.
Yeah.
How did that experience influence writing this book?
Yeah, I think it probably at a deeper level gives me confidence to write the book, not just from the pastoral experience of being at the same church for 2 decades plus and watching people endure and overcome, but then in my own journey with him, to be told as a 30-something-year-old, hey, you've got 2 years to live, and then really contend with the Lord, that I know in my guts that to die is gain. And I want to walk my daughters down the aisle.
Come on.
And I want to be here for my son as he becomes a man. And if I'm just telling you things I want because I think you care about those things, and they're in my heart anyway, I don't want another man to marry my wife. And she's beautiful, and that's going to happen quick. And I want to grow old with her. I want to sit on the back patio and sip coffee and talk about how God wrung us out for his glory in all the beautiful ways. And my understanding of the Lord is that the work of reconciliation was meant to bring me into intimate relationship with him, so that confession isn't always, oh, this is where I sinned, please forgive me. But confession is just telling God the truth.
He already knows
and that was the truth in my heart. And the number of people that were not helpful in that season, asking me to whip up faith so I might be healed, or the other side of things where I was just all in God's hands. And I'm like, it is all in God's hands. I think I do have faith, but both of you have taken those things to places where I just can't find it in the text.
Yeah.
And so, I've been there.
Oof, man. So the world is uncertain. It's
completely
wild, and there's a lot of fear in the, I mean, we're in election year. Yay. Of course, it's always going to be fun. What what role should the church play in helping people through this season? I mean,
Yeah.
we have hope.
Oh, there's no question.
We don't just have good news. We have the best news.
Yeah. Well, and again, if we're going to stay in Revelation, what you see happening, you get this interlude in the middle of the book, right? You got the letters to the churches. We're in the throne room, and then you get this interlude, and it just pops up at a cosmic level. And you see the woman giving birth to the son and the dragon waiting to devour. And then you got all that. And then the dragon is standing by the sea. He calls out for his henchmen. And this first great beast comes up out of the water and comes on. And it's clear. It's just, no matter where you land on certain things, we clearly understand from Daniel, which is just a reference back to Daniel, that this is demonically manipulated political power.
Yeah.
It's just what it is. And then the second beast comes, and the second beast, what's in view there? There's no doubt what's in view there is the imperial cult, where you had these temples where you had to worship Caesar.
Yep.
So you have this statement in 96 AD where Caesar is Lord. And so, but the theme of the New Testament is who's Lord? Jesus is Lord.
Yeah.
And so I think what you see politically there, one, our hope is in the finished work of Christ, which is why Revelation roots us in the throne room, where Christ is ruling and reigning right now, in this moment, not some future moment, right now. And then you've got this call to, you're going to have to endure, you're going to have to overcome this kind of imperial cult that says, put your hope in Caesar, put your hope in Caesar, put your hope in Caesar, you can't buy or sell. Put your hope in Caesar, or you're going to be put to death. Put your hope in Caesar, or you're going to go to jail. Put your hope in, and so our moment, like right now, we're just annoying.
Right.
Like anybody who says we're being persecuted in the West hasn't traveled outside of the West.
Yeah.
Now we are a nuisance. We are annoying. We are edited and mocked and attacked. But I don't have a friend that's gone to jail yet.
Yeah.
I don't have a friend that's been beaten up for their faith yet. Now, there are places where I know people that have been praying outside of Planned Parenthoods, have been punched or stabbed, or you can find that stuff in the news. But by and large, I haven't read yet of the church that had its doors kicked open or had to go underground. Yeah. That's all going on in 96 AD, when John, or really Jesus, is saying to the church, to he who overcomes, don't shrink back, live bold. Yep. Proclaim the gospel. So the church's role, if we're plugging it into kind of Paul's political system, is to be the prophetic voice against and for whatever government is in power.
Yes.
That in our day, the media thinks they're that, but they're certainly not. They're actually in bed with the beast. So the church has to reclaim its prophetic voice. And they can't do that if they're all in on a candidate. They can't do it. And I know I'm in Tulsa, and I pastor a church in Dallas. You deify your candidate.
Sure.
You're now in empire. You're no longer in kingdom.
Yep.
And so the church and the men and women of God in that church have to live prophetic lives in their neighborhoods, in their workplaces, where we honestly critique whoever our candidate, our party, our secondary, maybe tertiary allegiances go to.
Yeah, no, yeah, and ultimately, I mean, God's putting stuff in play. I mean,
that's it. Well, I mean,
he's moving the pieces.
Jesus even says to Pilate, "You don't have any power except what my Father gave you." I mean, right? He's like, "Yeah, you got power. Yeah, sure, you can put me to death, but you only have that power because my Father gave it to you. It's gonna be far worse for the one who betrayed me."
Yeah. Yep. It's a wild season.
Yeah.
Let's move into spiritual warfare.
Yeah.
So I think it's a real thing.
It is very real.
It's interesting that has been thrown into the headlines a lot as of late, and I believe it is true. Christians face it in our society.
Absolutely.
Even if it doesn't seem huge in the moment, it's still. I think everything behind it. There's always spiritual battle behind it. I guess, how can the church, or what would you recommend believers do in terms of?
C.S. Lewis has this great quote at the beginning of the Screw Tape Letters, where he talks about these two great errors around spiritual warfare and the demonic. One would be to believe it's not there or to ignore it. and the other would be to believe that everything that's happening is spiritual warfare. And
Yep.
so there's a space in there for discernment and for awareness, paying attention of what might be spiritual warfare, what might just be you ran over a nail on your street.
Sure.
And so you can take this too far and you'll rebuke everything.
Yeah.
But I think if you rightly understand and you can discern that there are markers where, okay, this is abnormal. This isn't just life in a fallen world. There is something I'm feeling and sensing in this that's super discombobulating, that doesn't make sense, that's out of nowhere. And so I'm going to just take this to the Lord, and I'm going to rebuke this thing in the name of Jesus, and I'm going to believe in the victory of Christ over every principality and power that exists.
Fantastic. So your ministry at the Village, it's been a significant impact to a lot of people, me included. How do you balance the demands of leading a large church?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big one, and then having personal responsibilities, sort of living out these principles.
Yeah, well, I don't feel a terrible amount of pressure to shepherd or pastor people outside the walls of the Village
You mean
church.
the comment section doesn't?
Never read the comments, bro. Never read the comments. Not a single helpful thing in there.
No.
So God's primary call on my life is to the men and women of the Village church. I have never, when I'm prayerfully writing a sermon, I can, before the Lord, tell you, I have never thought, what's the Big C church going to think about this?
Right.
I have been embedded with a group of men and women for over 2 decades. I shop where they shop. My kids go to school where their kids go to school.
Mm-hmm.
I hobby where they hobby. I eat where they eat. And I have a powerful burden for them. And so even this book was born out of my ministry to this group of people.
Yeah.
And so I learned very early on, if anything bubbles up out of there and goes anywhere else, that's just God doing something.
Yep.
I don't like my love. What gets me up in the morning and sometimes keeps me up at night is the work of God among the people of the Village church, not this book tour, not what happens with books when I write them, not when I do those things as obediences to the Lord as I feel like He leads me. I don't do those things because I feel like I have a responsibility to evangelicalism. I think that would crush me.
Yeah. And then, so I love that answer.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So I got a couple questions left, and we'll be done.
Oh, you're fine.
I pastor a small church. Everybody sees guys like you.
Yeah.
And says, man, look, people follow you, they listen to you.
Yeah.
And sometimes pastors see that and they're like, golly, man, I wish I had that. I wish I could do that. What would you say to the pastor that's pastoring a church of 50?
Sure. I would say this. I promise you don't. I promise you don't. Because the way to think about it would be all the issues and problems that you're experiencing in a congregation of 50 just exponentially grow the larger the congregation grows. And man, I try to tell pastors anytime I can get in front of them, never measure the outcome, measure obedience. And
Noah would be.
Yeah. I mean, and God's big plan for your little town or city or wherever you are, whether it's rural or right in the heart of the city or in the burbs, or like God's big plan for that place is you and your gifts. If you look at someone else, probably what's going to happen, unless you're looking at just for encouragement to your soul, but you start comparing, you're going to start to become a cheaper version of someone else rather than being who you're meant to be. And the moment you're out of kind of your God-given identity, you're living into all kinds of falsehood.
Man.
And that's going to, and I've just seen it, it's going to rot out your soul. But if you'll be you and you'll be you where God placed you, I think that's where life and joy is found. I really do. And so whether you have a congregation of 50 or a congregation of 5,000, you need to receive from the Lord what He has for you. Because, and I'm taking this from David, this isn't me. it might just be for the good of your own soul. You can't handle more than that. That's not an accusation against strength and weakness. That's not a value statement. It's a care of the Lord statement. And like, there are things I think I don't have right now because I don't think I can be trusted with them. I think they would be bad for my
Blow up in
soul.
your face.
That's right.
Yep.
And so the Lord's like, no, I'm not gonna give you that. There's things I need to refine in you, and I'm gonna refine them by withholding this thing.
Come on. Yeah.
And so be you where you are, and see your ministry as like, you've got a burden for that town you planted a church in or went to church.
Yeah.
That's because God's answer to all these people's prayers in that area is you.
Yep. Come on.
Not me, not Tim Keller, not some guy like that. Right. You.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I'm pastor in a small town, rural, mostly ranchers.
Come on.
Great meat. Great beef.
Sure.
And we're down to 480-ish.
Yeah.
If everybody shows up at the same time, you know how they
Come on, I do.
120.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's.
Well, here's maybe this. When I went to the village, a couple decades ago now, I had been traveling everywhere, preaching large conferences. I was doing itinerant ministry.
It was Shane.
And I was doing, Shane and I started a nonprofit together, and we were just doing collegiate stuff, young adult stuff, student stuff. And my vision for my life was because that'll burn you out. I mean, you watch the same kid get saved 4 summers in a row. You do start going, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
Why is discipleship not taking root? Why is this young man or woman not grown in grace so they know they don't have to get saved every time they stumble and fall? Yep. And so for me, this fantasy, and that's what it ended up being, of what would it look like if we worked to that end in one place for 40 years?
Yeah.
And that was my little fantasy. And so when I went to the village, which was Highland Village First Baptist Church, that's what it was. It was like everybody showed up my first Sunday, and it was 168 people.
Woo woo.
And I was like, the idea of like doing life deeply with these 168, growing in grace, growing in zeal for the Lord, was this fantasy that evaporated almost immediately.
Yeah.
And we began to grow rapidly, and I would argue supernaturally. And then all that was gone. And it was like, okay, how do you create discipleship pathways growing 1,000 a year?
Yep.
And we were young, and everybody thinks sexy is young or young is sexy, but I'm telling you, that was a nightmare.
You need some old guys.
I mean, anyone who had been a Christian for a few years and had a Bible, I was pleading with them to stay and help me, make disciples, because they would come and it was raw and it was so young, and they'd grab their Bible and journal with notes and go try to find a church that was a little bit older. And I'm telling you, I would just walk the sanctuary. If you had gray hair, I'd be like, please stay and help me. Please stay. This is a personal invitation from me. I know it feels young, but here's my promise. If you stay, I will give you meaningful, deep work among the next generation. And my whole first elder board was made up of guys whose kids had come to the village.
Oh, wow.
And they came in to make sure we weren't a cult. And then they stayed. And some have been Christians for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. Some of them were deacons and elders at other churches that came in, and I was just snatching those guys up and women up everywhere I could in those early years.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So one of my best friends, his name's Will Smith. I always like to say he is the Will Smith. Not just he's the. He is a pastor in Kentucky, and he called me, and you and I were talking. I told him I was doing this interview. He goes, dude, ask him this question. Okay. As a pastor, how do you prepare a sermon? Okay. What are your steps?
Yeah, so here, look, I'm just going to be super honest. I want to be alone with the Lord and just labor over a text. I wish I had some kind of step 1, step 2, step 3. I tend to get tearfully pleady with Jesus, with my Bible open and Logos on my computer. And I'm asking how to put this together. And so all that angst that comes out of me is not born of Greek work. It's born of me desperately. This is I think it's 1 Corinthians 4:4. the God of this age has blinded the minds of those who are perishing.
Yeah.
What am I going to throw at that? What rhetorical flair or flipping of words, or am I going to throw at that?
That's the Greek.
Like, I am a desperate man
Yeah.
being asked to do something that I cannot do, and he's provoked my spirit to see done. And so I have learned, if I lie here and like, well, my day one is reading, and that I'm literally stealing from the Lord the uniqueness of how he interacts with me in those moments. So I don't want to do that. So I've got an office above my garage, and I just want to go lock myself in.
Nice.
And I want to labor over the text. I've got Logos open, and when I begin to get a sense, this is probably way too charismatic for my Reformed friends, but begin to just, I try to think about, meditate on the text, try to put myself in it. Like, I want to sit, I want to look around, I want to smell it and feel it, and then I want to get to the exegetical work.
Nice. Fantastic. Yep. So you are still Reformed, correct?
Yeah, I'm a happy Reformed guy. I just don't come off that way because I'm really happy about it.
Yeah.
Not angry, not upset about it.
A lot of us in that.
It's just hard to believe. It's hard for me not to get my mind around the fact that, no, God saves. Like, you know how many guys Jeff Faircloth did that with on the football team? Maybe all of us. Why did I care? Why did I want it? Why was I drawn to it?
Before the foundation of the world.
Why did I, for a full year, mock and belittle his whole world and not be able to stop myself from going?
You want to come back to it?
That's right. I could have missed it. Nobody, my parents weren't making me go. I know that wasn't the house I was in. Like, why am I going? Well, because the Lord's wooing me. He's calling me. He was going to save me. And this is what makes evangelism so fun for me.
Yep.
I'm not going, salvation belongs to the Lord.
That's it.
Jesus didn't die for people who might get saved. He died for those who will get saved. And that, few things fuel my passion for global missions and evangelism like that reality. You know, every tribe, every tongue, every nation has sons and daughters.
I love Ephesians 1. When you get me fired up, Ephesians 1 literally just.
Yeah, it helps you rest.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, this isn't on my performance or how well I do this or whether or not I'm even struggling with something in this season. He knew, he took care of that.
Well, it's funny when, after you get done preaching, sometimes, in a smaller church, you're going to stand by the back door and shake hands. You got to shake hands. And sometimes, you think in your head, I killed that sermon. And everybody's like,
I mean, all right.
And then you get up and you're like, oh my gosh, this was horrible. Oh my goodness. And people are like weeping and like, it was amazing. I'm like, okay, then this is all in the Holy Spirit.
I love that about the Lord. He's just not going to let you get too into yourself.
Amen.
He's going to say, I'm going to make you feel like this isn't connecting at all. I'm going to work profoundly. And then I'm going to gently and lovingly rebuke you as a son by making you feel like you're on fire, and it's going to be crickets.
It's going to be horrible. Yeah.
And what a loving thing for him to do. So,
Amen.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. You excited about this tour?
Man, I really am. Funny things about traveling a lot and doing this kind of stuff is like when you're way out there and you're looking, into the future, like this is going to be awesome. And then you get there, and in my world, my 15-year-old's a little volleyball player at school, and then my son's still living at home, but it's got school and job, and I've got this church that I love, and I've got to miss certain things today, like I missed staff prayer today, and I was bummed about that. And so I am happy to step into what God's called me to and trust that He's going to do some stuff.
It's awesome. Man, you have been an encouragement to me for, golly, over a decade.
Come on, man.
And so
awesome.
I appreciate you and your love for the text, and you're not boring to listen to. Thank you.
Well,
there's too many of them.
I think it was Whitfield that said, because he was critiqued a lot about his style, and he was just like, I just can't be a velvet-mouthed preacher.
Yeah.
That. And I feel that, man. And I don't think everybody's got to yell and be as hands everywhere as I am, but the way I put it together, the Lord just so provokes me in it.
Yep.
And so I know what the prophet meant when he said, it's like a fire shut up in my bones. There are sometimes I'm like, I got to get this out of me, man. This past weekend was one of those. I was like, if I don't get this out of me, I feel like I'm going to explode. Yeah. And so
I just went through Dr. Steve Lawson's expository preaching academy. Man, that guy, he's like, listen, there needs to be a fire in the belly.
Yeah, and absolutely.
I just
was it Alistair Begg and his little pattern? I could read myself full, write myself clear, pray myself hot.
Mm.
I always love that part where he's just like, no, I need this to catch fire in me.
Come on.
So love it.
Cool.
Hey, and thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thank you for your faithfulness in a rural location. That's everybody talks about cities, but it's the rural areas that are dying right now, and good churches are hard to find in those areas.
So far.
And I love it.
You want to dismiss us in prayer?
Yeah, I'd absolutely
Sweet.
love to. Father, I thank you for your grace. I know that right now somebody's got this in their ears and they're out for a walk or in there in the car, maybe they're on a treadmill at a gym. And I just pray you would minister to their hearts right now. I don't know if there's marriage difficulty or a fear with the child or financial issues, or man, they just got terrible news, or they hadn't slept much because they haven't been able to let this thing go that's been going on in their world. I just ask, Holy Spirit, that you would minister to them in this moment, that they would get a sense of your presence, of your goodness, of your withness with them, and you would alleviate the fear, concern, dread, loss of hope, and that you would infuse their souls in this very moment with a sense of your goodness and presence. You are good and kind and beautiful and majestic and lovely. And we want to love you more than we do. We're testifying, we love you, but you're the infinite well. So will you expand our capacity to know, love, and worship you? Be with us tonight as the word is proclaimed and the word is sung. Stir the hearts of your people to gladness and boldness.
Yes.
And it's for your beautiful name I pray. Amen.
Thanks,
All right, boss. Blessings on you.